So I just want to say thank you, Jodie, for coming on today. So we've got Jodie Rivers here, who's got an incredible journey. And I just want to dig deep with you. So thank you, Jodie, for coming on.
No, thanks for having me, mate. Hope you're well.
All good this end. So I just want to start by asking, I mean, your journey is a very interesting one. Describe how you feel, sort of coming from nothing I mean, you got into it, you sort of initially ran a football academy with your boyhood hero. So if you can just talk us through that journey.
I think when I think of it, mate, it's quite incredible and how lucky I am, how privileged I've been. As you well know, football is a huge part of my life, always has been. From when I was a little boy, I think my first words were a ball, not mum or dad. And that's not even a cliche, that's true. Mum and dad say that my first words were a ball. So I absolutely love football, Jez. And, growing up on the council estate, the same council estate as you, Bemerton Heath, which I'm very proud of, still live here now. And I think that there's opportunities to take the wrong path from where we're from. I think we've got, if we wanted to, when we were younger, let's be frank and open and honest about this, if we wanted to get into crime or do naughty things or take drugs or drink down the local park and things like that, we can do it. Not everyone does it. Thankfully for me, with a lot of the vices that are out there, I didn't do them. And that is purely down to football, Jez. My love of football, kicking a ball. And I'm very grateful that, football has given me the opportunity to wake up every day, do what I love doing. I've traveled the world doing it. And I can hear myself talking now about it all. And it might come across as, a little bit arrogant or big-headed, but it's quite the opposite, mate. I'm just so lucky and privileged. And I realise that every day. And I tell myself every day as well, when you're having down days and stuff like that, and you've got, whether it be kids or adults in front of you kicking the ball, I think to myself, well, what else would I rather be doing, mate? So that's my love for football. I've loved watching it, playing it, now coaching it, talking about it, like we all do. We've all got our opinions. And I think that as I've got older as well, and I've started to realise that when you're younger, you think you know everything about football, and you realise you don't. And I think it's helped me become a better person as well. I was very opinionated, especially when I first started coaching. I used to think that I knew it all and I didn't have to learn anything. And in fact, 15 years on from starting that journey, I realised that I know very little, mate, and I've got to keep improving and, keep studying. Even yesterday, I'm sat watching tactics and formations with a pen and pad. And, you're just trying to, you're not trying to reinvent the wheel, because I don't think that's possible, but you're just trying to add those little bits of knowledge, mate. So, yeah, football is my life. I'll be honest with you, it's my utter life.
But I mean, you got into what you played at a very good standard. You got into the coaching, sort of did your coaching badges, what, 06, 07?
Started coaching badges, mate. So my first coaching role, actually, I was playing for Bemerton Heath Harlequins, and the chairman, Steve Slade, phoned me up. I always remember, mate, I was on a Sunday afternoon, I was in the market square, and I got a phone call from him saying that he wanted to do a Colts team that would bridge the gap between the reserves and the under-18s. And he said, look, I've got someone to do it. I'd like you to be the captain and play. So it would mean dropping down the team. And I was thinking to myself, well, do I really want to do that? I've just got... Anyway, cut a long story short, I did it. But the man they wanted to run the team eventually said no. So we come to the start of this whole pre-season, and they didn't have a manager or a coach. So Steve Slade said to me, do you mind taking a session and just looking after these boys? And I was hooked, mate. I was absolutely hooked from the first training session. No badges or anything like that, literally just done a session. And I found myself doing sessions that even now I can go back to, but there was no planning in it. I just literally done something. And I thought, oh, now I can do this and I can progress it this way and that way. And that's something that's helped me evolve as a coach now, because a lot of coaches, Jez, it's quite funny. If you speak to a lot of coaches, they'll say that they'll go into a lot of planning of what they're going to do, right down to the fine art. So we're going to do A, then we're going to do B, then we're going to do C, and we'll finish with D. me, I start with A, mate, and that's all I do. And that's no matter what level I'm coaching at. I have a general idea of what I want to do within the session, but I seem to have got this knack now and this experience, and it just suits me of going, right, I'm going to do this, and then we'll see where it goes. And I think that's where my natural enthusiasm for the game comes from, because I can go, I've seen this, now I can do that. Whereas many coaches, like I say, they have it very much planned and structured. So that was back in 2006 that I started that. I took my first coaching badge, excuse me, in 2008. And then, yeah, it's just evolved and taken off since then, mate, really.
I mean, it's just mind blowing. I mean, there'll be people that a lot of people know and a lot of people don't know that you're a big Saints fan. Used to go and watch every week. But I mean, your boyhood hero there, Matt Le Tissier. You ended up running a football academy, and it's absolutely. How did you get to that point? I mean, how did you run a football academy with your boyhood hero?
It's, you know, they say that things happen for a reason and what have you. And I was in a bit of a, you know, 2009, I was in a bit of a dark place, and not in a dark place in a terrible sense, but I was just stuck in a job that I didn't like and things like that. And I wanted to do football coaching. And, you know, and then through people, I got to know Matt, and he was interested in he saw something in me, which I'll always be very grateful of. I think it was my enthusiasm and passion for football. I never once discussed how much money I wanted. I never once discussed, things that I wanted. All I ever went to him for when the academy was running was ideas about football. So I think that he always took that side of me. You could see that there was a genuine side to things, to do things, you know, just for the football sense and for the kids and the players that would come. So we started back in 2012, and it was an incredible journey. I was, as you say, running a football program and an academy under my hero's name, my ultimate hero, who he is. And it was just so proud to represent him. He opened up so many doors for me, which have still led into, you know, the paths that I take now. And yeah, I tell one story, Jez, which, well, I got two good stories of Matt, and maybe we might not have time for two, but one of my favourite ones, mate, was I was sat at his house one day, and we were having a business meeting, and the directors were there, and that included Franny Benali, who also played for Saints, obviously, you know, a good friend of his, and he was a coach with us. And they started to talk, Jez, about right at the end of the meeting. I'd gone in there and said, I want to do this and this session and that session. And I always remember it was a boiling hot day. And they started talking about the finances of the company. Do you know what I mean? Like every board of directors would do, and, you know, what's being spent, what's coming in and all of that. And I remember thinking, I'm not interested. This don't bother me. Do you know what I mean? This is not what I'm here to do. My passion is the coaching in the football. So he took his flip-flops off, mate, and he put his feet up on his table because we're in his garden. And all of a sudden, so I think someone said to me, what do you think, Jody? I was like, what? Sorry. I just remember looking at his feet, mate, thinking, those feet, they're the ones that scored the goal against Newcastle, my favourite goal. They're the one that scored that goal against Blackburn. You know, they're the feet that, you know, the probably most famous feet that Southampton Football Club's ever seen. And I was just staring at his bare feet, mate, for, I don't know, it could have been 2-3 minutes, I don't know, and reminiscing all the goals and stuff. So, you know, that's the thing with me, is that I've that burning desire of football and passion and things like that. And, you know, it's given me a living, Jez. I could probably earn more money, mate, seriously, going and doing a trade or things like that. But you don't, you know, not just Matt Le Tissier, not just where that journey took me, but the things I do even now on a daily basis, or traveling around the world and, you know, and going to the clubs I've been to. I think that gives me more enrichment of life. I know that sounds a little bit corny or cheesy, mate, but it really does, mate. You know, I've been very, very lucky and very privileged.
And I think I couldn't agree more, mate. I think there's a lot of people that they wake up on a Monday, they wish it was a Friday, they're wishing their life away, and people think money's going to solve problems. But I think when you do something you absolutely love, and I mean, you've got bucket loads of passion, you have a unique way where you connect with the children, and you're very well respected. And, you know, there'd be people thinking, well, he's got a lucky break, and you know it couldn't be any further from the truth. You've worked hard. I mean, this is a journey
I,
over all these years.
to do you know what, Jez? I'll step in there, mate. And I've said this to people. People are like, "He got a lucky break." I think I did, but the difference is, Jez, is that I ran with it. Some people get breaks, but they don't want to do anything about it, mate. I got a lucky break. Matt Le Tissier came into my life, but there's so much that I've done that people, for example, assume that everything is because of my friendship or relationship with Matt. He has done a lot for me, okay? There's no two ways about that. He has given me a platform to say I work for Matt Le Tissier. So, for example, no one can go in and watch Southampton train. I've watched them train twice, the first team. And when I say train twice, I've watched them a few times. But when I say watched them twice, I mean actually stood there with Pochettino, with Claude Puel, and watched them train. Now, Matt set that up for me. Matt also set up for me to go to Athletic Bilbao and spend time there and watch them prepare to play Barcelona, and to sit on a halfway line in a director's box and watch Bilbao play and have all access areas. I was the only coach, Jez, that was allowed to stay and watch Bilbao train to prepare for Barcelona. So all the media were dragged out, all the other coaches were dragged out, even the academy coaches. I went to walk out and the security guard went, "No, you can stay." So yes, Jez, there have been many occasions where I've had help, I've had support, but I've earned that help and support by being loyal to him, by being trustworthy to him, and showing my passion to him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have done it. No one does anything for people that are, that don't want to, show that commitment to them. But there's also lots of things, Jez, that I've done that I'm very proud of, where it's come from me putting myself out there. For example, I'm quoted in Guillaume Balaguer's book Brave New World by Maurizio Pochettino, and people assume that Matt Le Tissier or someone famous or someone I know got me in that book. The missus was watching EastEnders one day. I was bored.
Many other TV shows available, just to put it out there.
Yeah, of course. And I was watching Tottenham, and I've loved Pochettino because of his time at Southampton. And I started to write some notes on him, and then it became a bit of a blog. So I wrote a blog on Pochettino, and I read it, and I put it out there on my page, and I thought to myself, I'm going to try and see what people think of this. So I sent it to Guillaume Balaguer. I sent it to Graham Hunter, who are two journalists within the football world. And Guillaume Balaguer is arguably one of the most famous football journalists, Spanish football journalists in the world, if not the most famous one. I sent it to him, Jez. I've looked back on emails that I might have lost some emails, but I know for a fact I sent it to him 23 times. 23 times, mate. And he never read it until the 23rd time. Then when he read it, he liked it, contacted me and asked if it could be used, if he could show Maurizio the session, the blog. And then eventually it was put into the book. And one of my things that I said is that he then said to me about obviously royalties using my name. And I said, look, I don't want any royalties for it. I think you can offer me more. Put my name in the book, give me exposure, and also show me a route that I can now get into watch Barcelona train. And that's how that stemmed. So when people say, oh, you've been to La Masia, and they assume where it came from, it didn't. It came from me writing a blog, sending it to someone, them not reading it, then they read it, then I turned money down to then say, no, I believe that there's more important stuff from this can come rather than money. And that's the opportunity to learn and develop as a coach. So, and again, even then, when I was put forward to La Masia, which was by Graham Hunter, because Guillaume contacted Graham. I met Graham in Barcelona. It took me 4 or 5 phone calls. I couldn't speak Spanish, so it was obviously the language barrier was very tough. And then eventually I got to go in there, and I've gone in, and you know, I'm proud to say that one of my sessions is actually used within La Masia in the younger age groups. I gave them a session, and they liked it so much. And the man that used it, Pierre Gratikos, he phoned me one day. I was in the gym, and he said, "Oh, hi, Jody. How are you?" I said, "Yeah, I'm good." He said, "Just so you know," he said, we use one of your sessions now with our younger age groups. And then he changed the subject. It was just like a throwaway comment. Now, to him, that was probably, "Oh, yeah, I'll just let Jerry." I was dancing around the gym, Jez. Do you know what I mean? Ringing people, telling people what I, you know, one of my sessions that I'd come up with was now being used in arguably the most famous academy in the world. So, listen, I'm very, very, very lucky, very, very humble. But I have, Jez, without blowing my own trumpet, mate, I have thrown myself out there and tried to, you know, push myself on people, because they're ultimately, mate, they're not going to come to me, a little lad, you know, from Pemberton Heath. You know, it's got to be me that goes and gets it. So, yeah, there's a little bit of background into how much I do try and pursue my own dreams, if you like.
And I think just to take a step back there to sort of, it's unreal. You know, people will try. Sometimes you're so close to getting that breakthrough. 23 emails. I mean,
Yeah.
what sort of mindset does it take to, like, after 10 emails? I mean, 99% of people are going to be like, right, I've tried, but 23 emails. Surprised you didn't get you done for stalking or harassment.
Yeah.
To be honest. But what gave you that mindset? Because that could have been a massive, that's been a massive transformation and breakthrough in your life to a certain degree. But what mindset do you require to just keep on going?
I think I can't put my finger on it exactly, Jez, but when I was younger, I was always loved football, and like we've discussed, and when I started coaching, there was a few people that mocked me. They mocked me because I am very enthusiastic. When I coach now, my biggest strength, what I've realised, Jez, my biggest strength is my communication. I have the ability to talk to a 4-year-old boy or a 26-year-old man or woman to a 70-year-old, you know, school receptionist. I have the ability, what I found is I have the ability to go to each level, whatever that is. I know, you know, if I'm talking to you down the pub and it's just me and you and I know no one's listening, I can be the lad that's down the pub talking about football. Whereas when I'm around different people, I know how to adapt, and I know how to, you know, for example, you know, I think good old fashioned morals from grandma and granddad. I would never swear in front of, you know, a lady I didn't know or something like that. You won't go into a school reception, Jez, and start effing and blinding and moaning about the game or talking out of turn and things like that. Whereas if it was me and you at a pub, I could start saying, "What about that decision?" and put a few expletives in. So I've always known how to communicate. And I feel that now when I do coach, one of my biggest things is I use what I've got to my advantage as well. So most people would laugh at me because I'm 5 foot nothing. I've got no hair. Yeah. Like a bit of food. Yeah. So for the wrong reasons, I probably stand out. I've got a girl's name. But when I go to Southampton Football Club, into the academy, people know me. Do they know me for being a great coach? Probably not. Do they know me for being, you know, this, you know, I'm saying when I visit them now, it's when I go in, you know, is it a case of them knowing me for being the next Pep Guardiola? No, Jez, they remember me because I've got a girl's name, I'm short, I'm bold, and I'm polite. And those 4 things, mate, are something that I can, you know, I've got no control over other than the politeness, but I use it to my advantage. So if, for example, Jez, take this the right way, mate, but if you go in and your name's Jez, now that's quite a bit of a unique name. Let's change your name now to Dave, all right, or Phil. And you go in, mate, and you've got your, you know, you've got your haircut, you've got your beard, you've got your smile, you've got your name. You almost, dare I say, you could be any one of 100 people that walked through that door that day, because you look the same, you sound the same. Whereas with me, I look different. Okay. So I use it to my advantage. You know, I always remember when Laurie McManamy came down to watch a session, he said to Matt, he said, I like that little bold coach. And some people would be offended by that, but I am little and I am bold, so I stand out. Do you see what I mean? And when I go to places and that's what I'm saying, mate, is that you go there and you use what you've got. But going back to your original question, I think as well is the mindset comes from the people mocking me. So when I started, I used my arms, I used my body language when I coach. I'm very loud. I'm very confident in what I'm saying and doing. Because the way I look at it is the information I'm giving has come from good sources, it's come from my brain, but it's not going to harm any player. So if I do tell a player to do this or try that, it's not going to harm them. And what I mean by that is, Jess, is that it's coming from the heart. So even if another coach was watching that, they might say, I don't agree with that. What he's saying is wrong, but I don't think it is wrong, because where I'm speaking from the heart, where I'm genuinely trying to help someone, I'm very confident in what I'm saying. I don't think I can be wrong. And what I mean by that is, you know, you're just trying to help someone and give them an idea. They don't have to take it. They might, you know, but I always say, you know, try this. What about this? Give them an idea. And I think it comes from when I was at Bentley Harlequins, there was a lot of people in front of me, Jez, within that football club at the time, that were mocking me, even though I was on their side. So I would take the sessions and I'd have people, because I was different. And I do believe I am different. Not better, different. And sometimes different can stand out for the wrong reasons. But where I was coming in at a different angle and saying, try this, what about this? Talking about, for example, how they receive a ball. You know, talking to 24, 25-year-old good players that they didn't need to know how to receive a ball. Well, they did, because my way was different and it will improve you. It will help you. So there was people mocking me. And I remember walking in changing rooms and hearing people laughing and joking about me. And most people's mentality in life, Jez, is when they want to do something, they do it for their family. Of course I do it for my family. Of course I do. But that's not my number one aim to people. My number one aim is to, all right, I'll show you. I'm at my very, very best, Jez, when someone is knocking me. Sometimes it goes quiet. You know, you get a period of time where no one's, how dare I say, no one's talking about me. And then something happens, mate. Oh, yeah, we can't be that good. Bang, up I go 10%. Do you know what I mean? Or, oh, you know, oh, he's going to do this. Oh, he won't be able to do that. What's he know about football? Bang, 10% again. Do you know what I mean? Someone says something or does something, whether that be in person, very seldom, by the way. They don't say it to your face, mate. Let's be honest. But, you know, you hear whispers or you hear something through social media and you think to yourself, that's aimed at me. Well, watch me go again. So I think the mentality comes, mate, from, well, I know it comes from, and that's from proving people wrong.
And that was like my next question, the fact that, you know, you've had so many people that have wrote you off in the early days. He's not good enough. He won't fucking make it and all this. And it requires some sort of tenacity and mindset to get over this. And I know that you said there that someone said something and give you that extra 10% to push on. But, you know, how have you, apart from that, how have you overcome that? Like a lot of people would be like, I'm just not cut to do this. You've got to have an incredible mindset.
I think first and foremost is something I love. So it's not doing something that I don't want to do and enjoy. So that helps, Jez. That certainly helps. If you think about it, if I was in a trade, and I don't want to be disrespectful to a trade, but I use my dad's one. He's a bricklayer. So if I was a bricklayer and someone said I was a crap brickie, I don't enjoy doing it. So I'd probably go, actually, they're probably right. Whereas coaching and football is my love and my passion. So I want to get better and I want to progress as a coach, as a manager, as, you know, in the game that I love. But I think as well is when you enjoy something so much, you find other avenues. So for example, one of the best coaches that I've studied in the world is Eddie Jones, the England rugby coach. Now people are like, well, why Eddie Jones? Because I've studied Guardiola. I've studied Bielsa. People are talking about Guardiola, Bielsa, Pochettino, Klopp on Sky now. Mate, I've done that 3-4 years ago. I know everything about them, and I've kept up to date with what they do. So when, Leeds, for example, everyone's blown away with this 4-1-4-1 formation, and they're talking about it now. Mate, I knew about it. I used it when I was at Dorchester Town a year ago. The same tactics and ideas that Bielsa was using, around the world. He inspired me to use it at Dorchester Town in the Southern Premier League. So what I'm trying to say is, mate, is that you're always trying to evolve. You're always trying to get better. And I think that when it goes, if I was a brickie, then I would have gave up. But it's football. It's what I love. It's what I want to do. And what I've realised now is that, is one of the best groundings you can have as a coach. And I think that all coaches should do this. Even the ones that have played in the Premier League. Go and work in schools. Go and work in schools, Jez, because number one, you will not get any better gratification in your life than working in the school. For example, my girls' school in Salisbury, Bemerton St John, 2-3 weeks ago, I work in there every Tuesday doing sports sessions. And that's the other thing as well, is that I do lots of football sessions, but sports sessions with young kids. So the kid that keeps falling over, the kid that can't kick a ball, well, you use the same techniques, just different dialogue and language with a professional footballer that's 30 years old. I know I've seen Arteta work with Sterling on taking his heels off the floor, bending his knees and punching a ball towards a goal. It's no different with what you would say to a 5 or 6 year old, mate, when they're falling over. Make sure your body's stable, your heels are off the floor, your knees are bent, you've got control of your body, and then you can control the ball. So going in and working in schools, but the other day, I was just telling you quickly, I was dropping my daughter off. She's in year 6. And because of COVID, all the year 1, 2 and 3 kids are sort of in this confined area. And I wasn't even working in the school that day, Jez. And one of them spotted me and shouted, "Jody." So I waved at him. To my daughter's disgust, by the way. She scooted off into class, embarrassed. Jez, I'm not lying to you, mate. Within 10 seconds, there's 30, 40 kids standing on a wall screaming, "Jody, Jody," waving at me. Now, you tell me any job in the world that gets a better feel-good factor than that. I'm not famous. I'm not rich. I'm just a normal lad that's dropping his daughter off to a school. But to those 30, 40 kids, mate, I'm someone. And I don't care what anyone says. You could be in the Premier League being Pep Guardiola, but when you walk into a school, your local schools in Salisbury, and you're walking down the street and you're recognised, and people want to talk to you, the kids, the parents, because of what you do, then I'd be a fool to stop all this. Do you know what I mean? And I think that that's where it comes from, is that it's coaches, not only do you learn to do the technical stuff in schools, because like I said, the 5, 6 year olds, they really need to be taught how to stand up, how to move, how to jump, let alone how to kick a ball. It makes me laugh, Jez, when teachers say, "Can you do football with year 1s?" And I get them, without a ball at stuff. Sometimes I've got bean bags and hoops, and I use hoops to make sure that their arms are outside the width of their body. And the teachers go, "Oh, yeah, but when they're going to have a game?" Well, they don't even know what a pitch is. They don't know what a goal is. That little girl over there, she's making mud pies, mate. She ain't interested. I've got to try and engage her. And once you learn to engage people, that's when I feel that you can then start the real coaching. And people say to me as well, I've had it, people say about me, about friends, I was a good with kids, but it might not work with adults, or some are good with adults and kids. I think that's rubbish, mate. I think, when you work with, I think to be able to work with adults, you must start with kids. But if you start with adults and then come the other way, it's difficult, because kids is where for me, the real in-depth coaching comes from. And that's what you can, you go on to use. So, and I think that, that going back to it, like the mentality and things like that, is just having a love and a passion for it, mate. I think it's as simple as that. I don't how can I put it, mate? I don't, some people would think that I would, because I'm so passionate about football, and I would have it in other aspects of my life, but I don't. I give up very easily, Jez. A prime example, my van, the back of the van, it needs cleaning, mate. You know, it's been 3-4 months since I've cleaned the back of the van. If I was as anal or as, you know, straight down the line, that van would be clean. It's not. I'll tell you why I don't clean the back of the van, Jez, because it's boring. I don't want to do it. But football, I love, and that's why I keep going, and that's why I keep doing it when it comes to football.
Okay. I just want to dig a little bit deeper now. What's been the toughest moment of your career to date, and how did it define you?
There's two. So the first one, I see massive positives from. Went into Dorchester Town as first team coach in the summer of 2019. And it was my first experience of working regularly with players of what I would sustain as a good level, a very good level, professional level, even though it's semi-pro players. Loved absolutely every minute of it, every second of it. Ironic that you're talking to me on a Monday. Saturday, I've just gone and watched Dorchester at home against Salisbury, drove down there, spoke to the fans, and just loved being back down there. Now, why I loved it, Jez, is because since I've started coaching, I've had lots of people question me, mock me, but I've also had a lot of people praise me. And when you go to Athletic Bilbao, Sporting Lisbon, Barcelona, Liverpool's academy in America, Saints Academy, you meet Pep Guardiola, you meet Pochettino, excuse me, all these people, it's good for people to go, wow, look at what he's doing. Look at what he's done. But I've never had anyone challenge me. So when it's coaching at my academy, or when I'm talking to people about the game, you're not under pressure just to get results. I went into Dorchester with Callum Brooks, who was the manager, and we had he had done an amazing job keeping the club up the year before, but in this summer we were putting together a new team. He was relatively new players were coming in. I had come in as a new coach, and I had to learn and adjust to be, working with these players. And the results didn't go for us, mate. And I learned that fine lines mattered. We would be doing well in games and then concede at wrong times, or player would make an individual mistake, or we would make mistakes just tactically. We've got to hold our hands up ourselves. But it was tough, mate, because you've got people who are wanting you to get results. And unfortunately, Callum left the club, and I took on 4 games as interim manager. And it was so hard, Jez. It was like Christmas Day, I'm trying to sign a player on Christmas Day, mate. And I thought to myself, welcome to the robustness of it all. And we have 4 games, and we went to Gosport, and we scored on the 89th minute to go 4-3 up. And, Portsmouth were playing that night as well. So it was live on BBC Radio Solent. They were coming to us, and I had to do an interview straight after. And I talked very rawly about conceding an equaliser on 94 minutes. Do you want the job? Your mates just left, and all that and the other, and it was out of my comfort zone. Then we played Tiverton at home. We got beat. Then we played Poole Town at home. Local derby, Boxing Day, over 1,000 people there. 2 men sent off with 25 minutes to go. We dug in, we lost in the last minute. And then Blackfield and Langley, we drew 2-2 at home. We went 2-0 up. We threw the game away, and we were a little bit gung-ho. And then I left, and I remember looking back at that. That was tough, Jez. That was tough when people were behind the goal, and behind you saying, you ain't good enough. This ain't, blah. Even though I felt, hang on a minute, I'm doing you a favour in some respects. You've not got a manager for whatever reason. I'm standing there, buying you time, hopefully for the club to get a manager in that can take you forward. But that was tough, Jez. And what I did, mate, I did the cardinal sin, mate, where I shouldn't have done. And I read social media. I read what people were writing about me. And if and when I go back in, mate, into that level of football, I've learned so much, mate, from that experience. I really have, you know, and even if we're winning, I won't look. Do you know what I mean? It was just like, some of it was personal. And then what you found though, Jez, is that there was like 100 comments and 75 of them would be like, yeah, but to be fair to Jody, he shows a lot of passion. He's trying to be brave. He's changed the formation. The players seem to be playing for him. But then you dig out the ones that are
They stand out.
you. Yeah, they literally do, mate. They're literally, you know, in you know, someone's put a pen over them. Look, read this. And that was tough, mate. So from a career perspective, that was tough, but brilliant. What I needed. Because for so long, Jez, I've been told what a great coach he is. Or, oh, have you seen Jody's session? Oh, he's something. And then all of a sudden, mate, I had that period of time. And I was talking to a few fans about it on Saturday. And I said, if I go back into that level, which I hopefully will one day, you know, at the right time, I've learned so much, mate. And you only learn, you know, from those experiences. So that was definitely the one that stands out from a coaching perspective, if you like.
Okay, on that basis, and I think there's a lot of people out there, and you could, you know, a lot of people out there in business, and you know yourself how tough it is out there. You could have easily, and a lot of people would have knocked on the head. You've been absolutely crucified. You know, I don't want this life. I just want to spend time with my family, enjoy my life. I don't need this. What advice can you give to other people in a similar position? They're having a hard time, you know, and they don't know which way to look. They're being crucified in whatever sector. What advice can you give how for them to overcome that? Just keep doing what they're doing, which is their passion.
Yeah, I think the biggest advice I can give people is, gosh, a good question. I know what I want to say. It's how I say it. I don't want to just say keep going, because I think that's wrong. When people, you know, we've all had stresses and strains and stuff going on in our lives. And I think that very, very important, and this is a cliche, but you have to seek support. You know, you have to talk to your wife, to a friend, to someone like that. You have to, you know, I'm very lucky that, you know, it's, you know, things, you've got to understand that no matter how good you think you are or how good something is, that things do change and do evolve. You know, like, for example, Matt Le Tissier Natural Coaching came to an end. Matt Le Tissier had no more time to give. He'd given, you know, so much. He'd given his name, but he felt that it was unjust of him to be part of something that he couldn't give his heart and soul to, which he'd done to Southampton, to his other jobs and stuff like that. So I stepped away from that, and Estrella Academy of Football was born. Now, that wouldn't have happened without a couple of friends helping me. That wouldn't have happened without my wife and my family supporting me. And it wouldn't have happened with my coaches that I employ now, you know, sticking by me. And I think that, you know, there were some tough times because, you know, for example, when my business became Estrella Academy of Football, who is Jody Rivers? Who is Estrella? I can't hide behind Matt Le Tissier no more, mate. Do you know what I mean? You've now got to be at the forefront. And it was basically, I remember that first session going in thinking, driving down there, not knowing how many kids were going to come, you know, not knowing what was going to go on and all that. And I remember thinking, it don't matter, Jody, if there's one kid or 100 kids there, you know, you need to now go back to believing in what you're good at. And I believe that I'm a good coach. And I believe a good coach is someone that cares, that someone tries to help, shows enthusiasm, shows passion. I'm not saying that I know more than Pochettino or Guardiola or you, Jez. You're a football fan. What gives me the right to say that I know more about football or a certain topic of football than you? I don't. What I can do, though, is those four things. I can be on time. I can look smart. I can smile. I can be polite. I can show my passion. I can show my energy. I can make sure that the session is fun, is challenging, you know, and ultimately that's where Estrella Academy Football's gone from. You know, the pandemic hit us like everyone else. We have people over the pandemic that unfortunately couldn't come back for whatever reason, or they've decided to go and do something else and what have you. But I didn't, there was no panic, Jez, anymore. It was like, you know, our numbers were probably at about 70% of what we'd had. And now they're probably back up to about 90% of what we had originally. And that has come from me with my coaches, but me at the front going, right, guys, make sure everything we do is to the best of our ability. And people tell friends and it gets out and people want to know. So I think, number one, to answer your question, do something you love. Don't open a business up. You know, if you're going to be a businessman, don't do something that you've got you can have knowledge about it, but if you ain't got the passion for it, you ain't going to sell the knowledge. So I think you've got to make sure that you love what you do and just do the basics right. Just do those things that, you know, that in everyday life will make you good or a better person. Do them. I always remember my granddad saying to me, it don't matter, Jody, you could have the most knowledge in the world, but if people don't like you, you ain't going to get on in life. And I'd like to think, mate, that the kids that come to us and the parents that come to us, they come to us, yes, because we're probably good coaches and we do those things. But I actually think that they like us as people. Do you know what I mean? We spend time with them, we have a chat, we ask how they are, we go beyond, you know, and like in the schools, I do a lot of mentoring, Jez. People think that I just coach a football, but because of my influence in a school, by being in there, kids get to like you, they get to respect you. So head teachers now ask me to come in and I sit down with these kids. Some of it's sport-based as well, so I help with motor skills and, you know, getting kids moving and active. But a lot of it, mate, is sitting down with them and going, your maths, you've got your English, you know, you're not listening, you know, why aren't you listening to the teacher? And using that platform of football to try and help the kids, you know, so, you know, on an academic and social basis. So my advice to people is definitely make sure that what you're doing, you've got a passion and enjoyment for. And if you haven't, that's when you need to reevaluate and maybe look at doing something else, and then throwing that enthusiasm and passion into what you want to do.
Well, you know, that's a great answer, and I think it's really important. There's a lot of people that end up, you know, doing a job that they don't enjoy, and that's a sort of waste of life and a waste of a potential talent, because everybody's got a talent. They just sometimes need to find it.
Yeah.
I now want to sort of move on to you get a lot of young footballers now, and it's a saturated sport. Football is so hard to get a breakthrough, and you could have someone that's been on the books at a professional club. They've been told you're going to make it. You're going to make it as a pro. They come out at you know, they might get released at the age of 16, or they might get their first professional contract at, you know, and they play at the age of 20, and then they get released, and then they don't have no plan B. What advice could you give people like that? You know, because they could go in, there's so many avenues they could go down to. What advice would you give to someone like that? And also the second part of the question, if you've got a young, because I know how much you love coaching the kids, if you've got kids that want to get into football and they're good enough as a player, what routes can they follow? I
think it's quite ironic, mate. We're talking today on you know, the day before, I don't know if you've seen it on the news, but a lad from Manchester City Academy has unfortunately taken his own life. He's 17. He's been released and he's taken his own life. And I do believe that through the media, it's because of, you know, the dream to him is over. What I will say to that, and obviously it goes without saying, you know, it's so sad, and, you know, your heartfelt thoughts go out to his family and his friends. And people are calling for academies to do more. And from what I know, I think academies do a lot. I think they are very much, you know, they have, I know, for example, that Southampton, you know, a club that's deep to my heart and a brilliant academy. And I've learned so much from my time when I go in and see them, but they do have like the aftercare of that. They do have someone, I think, that checks up on them and tries to get them a route into football. And I think that the most important thing, mate, is that you're trying to create good people before you create good footballers. So within the academy system and within coaching, we have a care of duty in my aspect. I was asked one day by a former Premier League manager, actually. He said to me, what do you want when you're older? And he was expecting me to say 20 players playing in the Premier League. I said, I want 100% of the people I coach, when they see me walking down the street, to want to stop and talk to me. And they've got a good job and they've got a good family. And he was quite taken aback by that, mate. And I think that that's from working in schools. And, you know, when you work with adults, you know, I've worked with adult players that I would dare say, well, they still contact me all the time. We've got a good relationship. Dare I say they love me. And that's because I genuinely care, Jez. Do you know what I mean? I've asked them how they are today. I've asked them, you know, what's going on. It's not just about football. And I think that that's the thing that stands out for me, is that, you know, football or any sport or any, you know, profession, you want good people working in it. And I think that what we've got to do is make sure that it's difficult, because how do you tell a young lad that he's not going to be a professional footballer? How do you say that to him? And we've talked already today about robust, you know, mentalities and bouncing back and being strong and all that. And I think sometimes, mate, that we forget that, you know, it's a tough world out there. And sometimes, you know, I see, you know, equal opportunities for all people and all children, I'm talking now. But unfortunately, life ain't going to be like that. We've got to make people, you know, and they say that the tough kids, you know, so a lot of tough kids have, you know, go on to have robust, you know, thoughts and can take their disappointment and channel it. But unfortunately, mate, I don't think there's any right or wrong answer. We just need to make sure that we're talking to people, we're making them understand the frailties of the professional game, that the opportunities are going to be scarce, that they might not happen, but you can go off in a different angle. So for me, for example, I wasn't good enough to be a footballer. Now I'm coaching, you know, and a lot of people knock the Premier League academies, but what they don't realise is that a lot of the players filter down and have good careers, Jez, playing in the lower leagues. And that might mean that they have to go and get a job alongside it. So you need to be on time, you need to be smart, you need to be polite. So I think that we just need to make sure that when we're coaching, we're not just having the end goal as, can we get that ball in the goal, or that boy to pass the ball this way, or to head the ball that way, or dribble like that. I think we've got to make sure that we're looking at the person before the player, you know, and some will fall through that. And unfortunately, they're the ones that do go down the wrong routes. Do you know what I mean? And go, you know, and take it the wrong way. So, you know, we need to try and minimize, you know, the number that go through that, because ultimately, mate, you know, I think that it's so difficult out there, and some people have no idea, Jez. They have absolutely no idea what it takes to be a professional footballer. You know, and what I mean by that is, you know, the dedication, the hard work, the commitment from families as well as the player, the little bit of luck you need. Do you know what I mean? And choices that can flip, you know, on a toss of a coin. You know, do you go training on that Friday night, or the girl's 14? You know, you're a 14-year-old boy, she's asked you out, and it's the difficult one, because do you throw everything in and then miss out on your childhood? And then, you know what I mean? And then, because people don't see it from that aspect, Jez. They always see the ones that go into football and get released. What about the ones, mate, that don't get into football? Yeah, they don't get into football, but also they're trying to get somewhere. It never happens, and they drop out. So we do focus on the ones that are released from academies, but what about the boys that never quite get there? You know, so again, I think that comes from education. I think that comes from coaching. And that's what I do like about coaching nowadays, is that there's so much more to it than balls, bibs, cones. There is that mental side of it. But you've got to be careful nowadays, mate. And I'm no expert at this. All I can do is go on my experiences and say that I hope to get it right 99.9% of the time. But you've got to be careful what you say to kids, mate. I say to my coaches, do not ever turn away from a kid. When they're walking down the corridor and you say hello to 4 kids and then the 5th kid walks by, say hello to him or her. Don't matter if they say hello back. Don't matter. They might be too shy to say hello to you, but you might, Jody, he's really popular in the school, mum. He talks to all the other kids, but he don't talk to me. And you just don't know where it takes you, mate. So I know I haven't given you a definitive answer, but I've just tried to sort of, do you know what I mean? Because I don't know the answer, Jez, is the truth. And I think that that's one of my strengths as well, is that, you know, if I don't know something, I say it, mate.
Now, any funny stories or horror stories with Matt at all that you can recall or you can say about getting
funniest one? Yeah. The funniest one is without a doubt. We went up to Scotland, to Gretna. He had to do a promotion. So basically, we went up, and I had to do the coaching at Gretna Football Club, and he in the evening was going to do a do. So people come and he tells his stories, and do you know what I mean? They have an auction for charity and all that, and it's brilliant. And we went up to Scotland, and the bloke said to me, right, we've got about 120 kids coming. And I said, that's all right, you know, no problem. I was there at 10 in the morning. I said, what age groups are they stagnated at? He went, oh, no. There's 120 kids coming all at once. I was like, whoa, do you know what I mean? I was like, are you joking? He said, I've got a couple of coaches that can help you. I said, a couple? So anyway, that was that. So I coached the kids during the day, and I just went into mode, and it worked. And they were all over Matt, and it was a good weekend. And anyway, that night I was sharing a room with him. Okay, walked into the room, and he was then going on. He was being picked up that night by ITV to go on TV. Can you remember he'd done a program? I forget what it was called. I think it was Invictus or something like that, or something where they all competed against each other. So different sports people, and they had to do endurance, they had to do sprints, they had to use their brains and all that. But it was on ITV. This is about 2-3 years ago. So anyway, we're in a room, and he was being picked up at 3 o'clock in the morning. So we got back to the room, and he's like, look, I'm going to sit on the sofa, mate. You just go to bed. So, all right, mate, no problem. So I gets in the bed, all right. And I'm led there. Anyway, about 3 o'clock in the morning, mate, get a little tap on the shoulder. Joe, my taxi's here, mate. And I said, all right, yeah, cool. He said, yeah, I'm going to go now. He said, well done today, mate. All the best. And without realising it, and I've told him this now, and we laugh, he pulled the cover over me. So how many people, Jez, can actually say that they've been tucked into bed by their ultimate hero, mate? How's that? Do you know what I mean? You can't beat that, can you? Eh? So yeah, that's the one. Other than the one looking at his feet, mate, that's the one that stands out. Is that my ultimate hero tucked me into his bed? But he was great for me, mate, and his family, and they've done so much for me, mate, and I'm really appreciative. I mean, he introduced me. It's, you know, it will be my profile pic on almost social media for years to come. My hero introduced me to my hero. So I'll tell you another quick funny story as well. He phoned me up one day. He said, all right, mate. I said, yeah. He said, I'm on the PGA tour with someone you might want to be interested with. He said, the draw's been made. I'm with one of your heroes. And this is true, mate. I don't know why and where this come from, but my ultimate hero in coaching is Pep Guardiola. Okay, everyone knows that if they know me. So rather than say Pep, I didn't think it would be Pep, because I didn't. That's too extreme. I just said, what, Michael Bolton? No, mate, no. And I was like, oh right. He goes, no, Pep. I was like, what? He's like, yeah. He said, I've been put with Pep. I said, right. He said, look. He said, they don't confirm it until the day before. So I said, all right. He said, do you want to come up? I said, right, of course. So anyway, day before, it's gets to about 9 o'clock at night, and I'm thinking, he ain't confirmed it. So I text him saying, hi, mate, you know, sorry to chase you up, blah, blah, blah. He's like, oh, yeah, it's just come through now. Come on up tomorrow. So I woke up at 5 o'clock in the morning. I couldn't sleep, mate. This is only 2 years ago, Jez. 5 o'clock in the morning, gets up, drives to Wentworth, parks up, and we're walking along. So I gets there, and Pep's like that, and Pep, he was immaculate, mate. He was immaculate. Everything about Guardiola is immaculate. The way he dresses, the way his beard. I mean it. I know it sounds a bit silly, but he's someone that you can tell he's in the public eye. He's not. You're not going to see him, mate, with ketchup down his chin or his whatever, looking a mess. He was immaculate, and he was talking with Matt, and then I spoke to Matt, and he said, "Look, just walk with us." So ultimately, we got to about, I'm not a big golf fan, by the way, but we got to like the 5th hole, and all eyes were on Guardiola. There was Matt Le Tissier, Pep Guardiola, Peter Schmeichel, and Tommy Fleetwood in this 4 ball. And there was other famous people there, but obviously all eyes were on Pep. It was when City were just like hammering, blowing people away. So he took this shot, mate, right? And he shanked it. Absolutely shanked it, Pep Guardiola. And just no one said anything, mate. Do you know what I mean? If you'd have done it, we'd have all took the piss, wouldn't we? If I'd, and no one just looked at, do you know what I mean? And it was just, Pep just sort of had Pep could laugh at himself. So he had a little wry smile. And I always remember looking at Matt, and he was with Gordon Watson, who used to play for the Saints as well. He was his caddy. And we just had a little wry smile to each other. It was just one of them nice moments that I always look at in my friendship and relationship with Matt, where we were like, oh, do you know what I mean? We're not going to say anything to Pep. Do you know what I mean? He can get away with it. And then we walked another 5 holes, mate. And then we walked another 5 holes. And then Matt pointed at me, and I walked over. And he said, anyway, the security tried to stop me getting under the thing, and they let me in. He walked, and Pep had his back to me, mate. And Matt went, come with me. And I tell you what, mate, honestly, I was like, this is incredible. This is my ultimate hero, mate. Jose Mourinho, when he started, and I like Mourinho, and I've been, a bit critical of Mourinho over time, but I think he's got his mojo back. But he's been a big influence, Bielsa, Pochettino. But this is the ultimate, mate. This is my hero introducing me to my hero. So he said, oh, Pep. So he turned around, oh, Jody. The first thing he done, he's put his hand on my shoulders. You can, like he does his players. And he said to me, oh, Matt tells me you're a wonderful, lovely coach. Maybe one day I can learn from you. And I just went, are you joking? And he's like, oh, Matt tells me all about you, how you love the game. And his arms are going, and I'm just like, oh, mate. So we took some photos, and I walked with him a bit more and chatting. And he was just like, it was quite incredible, mate, how someone so pinnacle in my career, in my childhood, had introduced me to someone that was like another hero. And it's you look on any of my social media, mate, and there's the photo, me, Matt Le Tissier one side, Pep Guardiola the other side, mate. Hero introduced me to my hero. You don't get better than that, mate, do you?
I mean, living the dream. And I just got to go back, because people will think it's a throwaway comment about Michael Bolton. But no word of a lie, if Jody turns up at your school to do his coaching, and you hear this fan with "How Can We Be Lovers" blaring out, that's Jody. One of it, and he's under 60.
Mate. Honestly, people think I take the piss, Jez. He is my favourite artist. I don't care whether do you know what? I'm glad you brought that up, because I think you've helped me answer one of your questions earlier. When I was a kid, we all listened. We were growing up. I was born 1980, so I think you were just before me, weren't you? But we were all listening to rave when we're 10, 11, 12 years old. And let's be honest, Jez, it was crap.
Yeah.
Wasn't it? And you listen to music that people wanted you to listen to. I remember putting Michael Bolton on, and love songs and pop songs, and my brother shutting the window in case my mates walked by and heard it, because it was embarrassing. I've always liked what I've liked. I don't care. I don't care if people think that Michael Bolton, most of the people listening to this probably haven't even heard of Michael Bolton. Well, he's the best singer, in my opinion. His voice, you get him singing Nessun Dorma, listen to him sing Nessun Dorma, and then tell me he's not a good singer. But yeah, I love him, mate. And I think that answers one of your questions, Jez. I don't really care what people think of me. Do you know what I mean? I've got no height, no hair, girl's name, bit of a belly on me, like me food, like Michael Bolton, but I don't care, Jez. And I think you've helped me answer a question, mate. Part of my resilience is down to the fact that what are people really going to say, mate? It don't really bother me. But yeah, anyone go and listen to, maybe we could do another podcast, mate, and we can talk about Michael Bolton and go for his top 10
Q&A
songs.
about Michael Bolton. So Michael Bolton is the difference. I've never, ever heard that, and I don't think I ever will again. But I just want to say,
There
mate,
you go.
you're an absolute inspiration. I think you're proof in the pudding that you can do anything that you want to. And we're not talking about years and years ago. We're talking out, 2008 when you started your coaching badges and things like that. And you've just, in a space of 12 years, you are absolutely living the dream. But before I go, how can people find you on social media channels? And how can people look at your football academy if they want their kids to go?
So, obviously, I'm on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So just put Jody Rivers in. I don't think there'll be too many of them, mate. Let's be honest. So yeah, you're welcome to follow me on there. And then Australia Academy of Football, we've got our website's being done at the moment, which is good. So that'll be up and running soon. Just a normal www. And then Australia Academy of Football.co.uk. And then obviously we're on social media as well, mate. So anyone that's, welcome to look and, get in contact, see what we do. Like I said, you're more than welcome to contact me, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can.
Brilliant. So do please check Jody out, because he's got a great concept there with his business. He really is true to his word, and he loves, there's not one, I've heard some sort of stories that cannot be aired here about children and that, but he really does love and care about the children, whatever age, whatever the skill set. He just wants his money children involved, and that's what he stands for. But I just want to say I wish you all the best, mate. Keep in touch.
Cheers, mate.
Thank you very much for today, bud.
Cool. Cheers, Jez.